Hello, Flanspate here, and I'd like to give you a brief summary of our workshop with the University Women's Network. The workshop concerned itself with resilience in the workplace and how our individual resilience skills can help to make our workplace a more pleasant place for us to be. We began by looking at the Doing Well from the Inside Out program. This concentrated on the first part, which related to me, and it was relation to building my well-being and resilience skills so that I can see how do I contribute. It moved on to we, where we're building the well-being and resilience in the team where we work. We looked at how are we with others, and then we moved to the community, which in this instance was the NUIG community, and looked at the area of having a positive impact on other people around us. The key to our workshop was in relation to resilience, and we looked at the resilience at work model, which included perspective, emotional intelligence, purpose, value and strength, connections, managing physical energy, flexibility and resources. And we'll now take a brief overview of each section. In terms of perspective, we asked a number of questions. Are we able to positively reframe negative experiences? Can you accept what you cannot change and focus your efforts on those things that you can? We asked the question, are you solution driven or do you tend to get stuck in the problem? Are you good at facing fully negative information while not dwelling on it? We looked at the story of Little Red Riding Hood from the wolf's perspective, and it gave us a very different version of the story. We then moved on to emotional intelligence and asked the questions of, do you acknowledge your feelings and express them appropriately? Are you able to change your mood when you need to? How intentional are you about providing support to others? We had some stories from experiences in NUIG where people were helpful in different circumstances. When looked at from different perspectives, it could be from the person who was receiving the help, their perspective was that this was a very pleasant experience. From the person who was giving the help, the perspective was possibly based on their values, where they put a value in relation to helping others and being kind. But there were also other perspectives which could have come into play. For instance, if somebody gave up part of doing their job in order to help somebody, it may have interfered with the perspective of them completing their job properly. So it's important in any situation that we explore different perspectives of the same event in order to avoid possible conflict occurring. We looked at the idea of the unknown, and it's really the gift that we can give to other people by a simple action. It's the result of and the impact of some of the things that we do. A simple act of kindness can result in a very good experience for the person we have helped. But also, one simple remark in a bad kind of a way can result in a negative experience for the other person. In going further into emotional intelligence, we saw that it was a term created by two researchers and popularized by Dan Goleman in his 1996 book of the same name. It's defined as the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. In practical terms, this means being aware that emotions can drive our behavior and impact people, both positively and negatively, and learning how to manage those emotions both on our own and others, especially when we're under pressure. The research shows that emotional intelligence accounts for twice as much as intellectual quotient and technical skills combined in determining who will be successful. In relation to self-awareness, you need to understand the impact you have on others around you. You need to unleash the best of what you have to offer. Discover why your best self is your best choice. It can help create a workplace culture. Emotions are contagious, improve relationships quality, and build a culture of accountability. It helps in exceptional leadership. We saw that people leave managers, not jobs. Exceptional leaders bring out the best in their people. It's a scientific fact that emotions precede thought. When emotions run high, they change the way our brains function, diminishing our cognitive abilities, decision-making powers, and even interpersonal skills. So it's really important that we learn to recognize and to manage our emotions. We then moved on to look at purpose, values, and strengths. We asked the question of, do you have a clear sense of purpose at work? Do you know your personal strengths and make the opportunity to use them regularly in your work? Do you have a clear sense of your own values and act in a way that's consistent with those values? Does your work fit well with your personal values and beliefs? Again, we found in conflicting situations where there is a clash of values, it can often be very difficult to deal with. We looked at some of the NUIG values from our previous plan and began to relate those to the personal values that we hold ourselves. We then moved into a diamond ranking exercise where we selected our top 4 values from a list of values that were given in relation to the workplace, and we prioritized these values. We then moved into a group situation where we again began to prioritize until we eventually reached what were the top 4 values in relation to the group. We looked at connections. We asked the question, do you have a strong and reliable network of colleagues inside and outside of work that will help you through difficult times? Are you able to meet your varied needs through a diverse support network? We had a discussion on the importance of support, and we carried out an exercise where we filled out a series of statements and looked at a support grid to see were there areas where we needed specific support. In continuing the exercise, we again looked at a series of columns which could give us some idea of the kind of support that we needed. So for instance, if most of the answers were in column A, it related to personal support, looking for praise and recognition, confidence boosting, comradeship, personal needs, and improving your own practice. We then asked people to identify individuals within the structures of NUIG, either their manager or supervisor, members of their own work team, was there a designated support person, or could you receive support from somebody else, perhaps from a friend or a family member. Again, we stressed the importance of getting the right kind of support from the right people. Next, we began to look at managing physical energy. We asked questions like, do you make time to exercise regularly? Do you get enough sleep? Do you ensure that you eat a healthy diet? Do you make time in your schedule for the pursuit of activities that give you joy and or help you to relax? Managing our physical energy is quite an important aspect in relation to determining how we will perform both in a work and in a recreational situation. It's important that we have some kind of work-life balance that works for us. Individuals can build personal resilience at work by achieving a healthy work-life balance. This is especially challenging in the world we're living in today. Technology can mean that employees may have access to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In order to be able to bounce back from stressful situations, that is, to be resilient, workers need to have the energy that can easily be depleted if a healthy work-life balance is not in place. Workers need time to relax, to unwind, and to recuperate. Once we have this healthy work-life balance, it makes our lives a lot more pleasant. We need to see that we take what we call detachment breaks. Throughout the workday, it's important to pay attention to the peaks and valleys of energy and productivity that we all experience. Mental focus, clarity, and energy cycles are typically between 90 and 120 minutes long, so it's useful to step away from our work for even a few minutes to reset energy and attention. Sometimes maybe just going for a short walk, maybe even just playing one quick game on the computer, just to break the focus from the work. We then have a lot more energy in coming back to it. Research suggests that balancing work activity with even a brief time for detaching from those activities can promote greater energy, mental clarity, creativity, and focus, ultimately growing our capacity for resilience throughout the course of the workday. The long-term payoff is that we preserve energy and prevent burnout over the course of days, weeks, and months. We also looked at flexibility and resourcefulness, discovering the importance of managing paradox and being flexible so that we're able to view life from different perspectives and creatively manage change and meet challenges. If you look at the two photographs here, you're being asked to describe what you see. In reality, when I looked for these photographs on the internet, I googled happiness and sadness. Very many people will see happiness in the first photograph and sadness in the second. This is an emotional response, which is very natural because remember, our emotional response comes first. But if we're to use our emotional intelligence, we need to be able to park that response, not forget about it, but just park it for a few moments and see, can our cognitive response take over a little more. For instance, in the photograph where you see sadness, many people have identified that perhaps the little girl who appears to be sad is being bullied by the other two girls in the background. Again, that's an emotional response. If we can park that and ask ourselves the question, maybe they're playing a game of hide and seek. Maybe the two girls in the background can see that the other girl is sad and they're discussing ways that they can help her. We don't know. But if we park our initial emotional response to the picture and to the situation, we can begin to look more cognitively at what's going on and perhaps get a different perspective than that we had the first time. It's important that we're able to decenter stress and to develop mental agility. It's possible, without too much effort, to literally switch the neural networks with which we process the experience of stress in order to respond to, rather than react to, any difficult situation or person. This quality of mental agility hinges on the ability to mentally decenter stressors in order to effectively manage them. Decentering stress is not denying or suppressing the fact that we feel stressed. Rather, it's the process of being able to pause, to observe the experience from a neutral standpoint, and then to try to solve the problem. Again, if we go back to emotional intelligence, remembering that our emotional response is the natural one that comes first, if we can park that response and begin to look at the situation from perhaps a different perspective, we may find something towards solving the problem. When we are able to cognitively take a step back from our experience and label our thoughts and emotions, we are effectively pivoting attention from the narrative network in our brains to the more observational parts of our brains. Being mentally agile and decentering stress when it occurs enables the core resilience skill of response flexibility, which psychologist Linda Graham describes as the ability to pause, step back, reflect, shift perspectives, create options, and choose wisely. We often tell our children who are upset to use your own words, for example. And it turns out that stopping and labeling the emotions has the effect of activating the thinking center of our brains rather than the emotional center. And this is a very valuable skill in a demanding, high-performance workplace everywhere. Finally, I'd just like to say thank you for taking part in our workshop, and I hope you found it enjoyable.